That's gone live.
Chairman, can I say, I think that rather than read the report, I think we can just assume that everyone's ready to confirm that.
Yes. Is everybody in now, David? Can't hear you, David. You're on mute.
Sorry, yes, everybody who's waiting to be admitted is being admitted, but I have one gentleman who's just made a phone call to say he's struggling, so I'm about to send him an email so he can try again.
Right, okay. Well, it's just after 4 o'clock. I think as chairman of the committee, I'm Councillor Peter Hogarth. We have a number of councillors involved: Councillor Paul Thomas, Councillor Catherine Thomas. Who else is there? Oh, Councillor Bob Grinsell are the 4 councillors here this afternoon. And then we have people from the Santok Gill is our solicitor, and Naz Pathan will be involved with basically highlighting anything in the report. And I understand we have a gentleman from Westbourne Leisure Limited who is going to be also speaking. Is that gentleman here?
Good afternoon. My name is Leo Trevor. I am the barrister representing Mr. Windsor, Westbourne Leisure. So he's available for me to answer any questions, along with Carl Moore, the licensing consultant. But otherwise, I shall probably do the predominant amount of speaking.
Well, Leo, if you don't mind me calling you that, save getting my tongue tied around your surname.
Sure.
Your microphone is not very clear. It's a bit garbled, to be perfectly honest. So hopefully you can try and get that sorted out before we officially start. Now I'm just going to. Pardon? Hello?
Is better?
No.
Let me. Okay, let me take a minute and I'll check my mic.
Okay. I would suggest the exits and rejoins.
Oh, we can see you now, Leo.
Oh, good.
We can see you now. Just say a few words.
I'll exit. Are you able to hear me okay?
We'll try you anyway.
Exit. I'll exit and I'll exit and rejoin.
Okay, fine, thank you. Mr. Carl Moore, may I ask who you are representing, or are you just a resident?
No, I'm the licensing authorised agent for Westbourne Leisure, Chair.
You're the licensing officer for Westbourne Leisure?
That is correct, yes.
Fine, thank you. Right, I'm going to read out, welcome to the meeting of the Licensing Act panel. During the COVID-19 pandemic, virtual committee meetings are taking place, and I need to remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed and any member of the press and public may be able to listen to the proceedings online. The participants in this meeting will be the members of the committee, the officers advising the committee, and any members of the public or ward members who may have requested to speak at the meeting. Members, please remember to put your microphones on mute whilst not speaking on an item, as I as chairman will use my discretion as to order in which participants speak and will announce whom I wish to speak. The nominated speaker should then unmute their microphone and mute it after they have finished their contribution. When this meeting has been concluded, members of the committee will then go into private to decide the outcome of what they've heard this afternoon. Are we all there now?
We're still waiting for the barrister.
Right, well, we'll hold fire for a moment then. David, have you got a list of anyone who is speaking?
No. I believe Councillor Alsop is speaking on behalf of a number of residents.
Yes.
I believe Mr. Richard Marshall may wish to speak. And there's a Mr. Nick Courtney, but he's the gentleman that was having difficulty logging in. So whether he'll be able to join us, I'm not sure. But those are the only people I'm aware of.
The answer then is really, if anyone wishes to speak, I will invite them who are on the screen at this present time. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Right. Now, who is going to introduce the actual reasons why we're here?
I'll be myself, Chairman.
Right, okay. Can we now start, please?
Yeah. Chairman, we have before you an application for a variation to a premise license made by Westbourne Leisure Limited, trading as Strawberry Bank Hotel.
Sorry, Chairman.
Yeah.
Can we wait until Leo rejoins us, and we won't need the full report read out?
Okay, right.
Because
okay.
If you got any questions of the officer,
Yeah,
you can ask.
Naz is going to do it by the sound of it.
Yeah. Shall we wait until Leo rejoins?
Okay, fine.
One suggestion: you don't need to read the whole report out. I assume everyone's read the report, so you may just want to ask the officer, do you have any questions on the contents of that report?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want the whole report being, if people have read it, which they should have done, then all we need is a resume of the main thing.
Just wait for Leo to join. He has been trying to join us, Leo. Just text.
He's joined us.
He just attempted to rejoin us.
All right.
David, just had an email from Mr. Edwards saying he was asking to be an observer, and Councillor also was going to be speaking on his behalf, but he's still waiting for the invitation. John Edwards, he just emailed me.
Okay, I can send that through to him. Thanks, Naz.
Also, David, I've just had a message from Annie Betterson saying that she doesn't think that it's broadcasting at the moment either. So you're on mute, David.
Sorry, thanks for that. It's saying it's live connected, but we'll have to have a look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all I've got. She's just WhatsApped me. So.
I think, Zantok, we're going to have to start.
Chairman, I don't think we can start because we've read the report. It'll be Leo then presenting the application. And let me just ring him, Chairman, if that's okay.
Okay.
David, she just says she's found it now, so that's okay. Good.
Leo. Hello. Chairman, he is attempting. There's been some problem with WebEx at the moment to rejoin, but he's going to rejoin. Start again now. Chairman, there has been a problem with WebEx. He's trying to rejoin now.
Chair, if that fails, can I suggest that Santok puts the gentleman on loudspeaker on his own phone?
Or you can dial us in.
Well, I don't care how, but obviously he has to join in some way, shape, or form. It's not our problem that he can't access it because we've all accessed it. So whichever way you think, Santok, whether it be over your mobile telephone, so he's on loudspeaker, so at least we can hear the presentation. With your permissions, Chair.
Chairman, actually, he's just come through now onto the lobby, so I'll admit him into the meeting.
Good. Welcome back, Leo.
Can you all hear me? Because I could hear and see you. See and hear me clearly. So, and I got a reported glitch with the system. But is this all clear?
It's clearer, but I think what I would suggest is that you speak more slowly, and then we might hear everything that is required. I'm now going to start the meeting at 16:12, and Naz Pathan, licensing officer, will run through a few highlights of the reasons why we're here this evening. Naz.
Thank you, Chairman. We're here today to determine the application for a variation to a premise license made by Westbourne Legends Limited, trading as Strawberry Bank Hotel, located in Main Road, Meriden. The applicant is seeking to extend the license area of the premises to the outside boundary line line with current government guidance encouraging the hospitality sector to utilise outside areas during COVID-19 pandemic. The licensing authority has received a number of relevant representations, all from nearby residents and one from the parish council, which are all at Appendix D. The panel may choose any of the following actions: grant the application as applied for, grant the application but with modifications such as an amendment to the hours or amendment to the conditions, or refuse the application. The applicants advertise the application by way of statutory notices, the premises and in the local newspaper. The consultation has taken place with all the responsible authorities and no representations were received from any of the responsible authorities, and the application fee has been paid. That's basically the summary of the report, Chairman.
Right, thank you, Naz. Leo, we've all read the report, so if you now, as I say, try talk a little bit slower and we may be able to get a complete understanding of your case. Please proceed.
Sir, thank you very much. Well, my case is relatively straightforward and it's quite simple, despite the volume of paper that you've received. As you and your colleagues will have observed, this is an application for a variation. It is not an application for a review. And as your officers have outlined in the report, the purpose of this hearing is to properly consider relevant representations. So a whole host of issues relating to parking, highways, planning, existing availability of alcohol, and so on and so forth are just plainly irrelevant. And I don't say that to be rude to any of the members of civil society that join us, but the licensing regime is a very specific regime that addresses itself to very specific objectives, and each of its applications have a very specific scope and purpose. And indeed, the very first test that you and your colleagues must apply is that they are relevant. As your legal advisor will remind you, relevance cannot be and cannot include anxieties. We know, because the High Court has told us in a case known as Thwaites, that we must carefully scrutinise our anxieties and make sure that they are rooted in fact. So you'll see, in fact, that when you turn to the representations, which have been prepared and submitted, what we see is a great deal of anxiety, not rooted in fact, not in fact evidence-based. In this particular circumstances, you're not helped by the lack of participation from your responsible authorities. This, again, is not to criticise them. They're not required to participate. But you know that when it comes to the experts in terms of the licensing objectives, that's the experts in terms of crime and disorder, in terms of public nuisance, in terms of public safety, the protection of children from harm. What we find is that paragraph 9.12 tells us that they are the experts and they lead us. In this case, the experts are not here. They're not here to lead us. And even though they've had sufficient opportunity to review the application, they've not made any comment. In fact, on the contrary, it seems to me that they can well be said to support this application because as a result of negotiations undertaken by the premises with its agent, Mr. Carl Moore, what we have is a series of conditions, and they're in Appendix F of your papers, which sets out the conditions that address their concerns. And their concerns are engaged at the very lowest level, being concerned with ensuring that CCTV is covered, that there is an incident log kept, and that it is fully particularised, and that there is a risk assessment. All of these things are done and have been done for a period of over 6 years since my client has been engaged and has been the premises licence holder. And in fact, even though your responsible authorities are silent, what is confusing to my client is that your own Economic and Infrastructure Directorate are in full support, and they are encouraging your client in terms of reopening business, in terms of being COVID safe, and in fact have suggested that he acts as a business champion for the area. With one part of the council, we are being put forward as a business champion, that we are being encouraged in our endeavours, particularly because they contribute to and feed in the regeneration and the restructuring of the local area post-COVID. So we're not surprised that they've not made any representations against us, because as far as I'm concerned, it's my submission that we are held in very high regard, and indeed the highest regard, by your local authority. And also, the representations can perhaps be understood by the COVID lens, the concerns in and around COVID. We're particularly surprised to find our neighbours making representations in respect of outdoor activity. But when one thinks about the anxieties that are generated as a result of the times we live in, it may well be that those anxieties inform that. Having moved from a situation where we were all effectively muted, silenced, and confined to our homes, suddenly to be faced with the resumption of outside use at the premises and the impact it of course will a lot and a lot more impactful than has previously been the case. But what is particularly interesting in this case is that our way of operating has not in fact changed at all. And I have to add on a legal point, what we will do and what we will continue to do remains to a large degree unaffected by the outcome of this application. We are allowed to use our outdoor spaces in the way that we have been doing. We are permitted to have licensable activities on our premises. The Live Music Act and the Deregulation Act all encourage us, and indeed the government says we want live music, we want entertainment to obtain in our areas, and we have permission for all of that. All this variation application is doing is it's asking for permission to put a bar servery in our garden area. All it will do is means that there is less friction, so that rather than moving from the interior of the building to the outside area, as we are lawfully currently doing now and can continue to do so, whatever the outcome of this case, we're effectively creating an outside servery area. This has a number of advantages, and these are significant because, in fact, the advantages are such that they will have a positive impact on the licensing objective. It effectively means that a fully staffed servery area in the outside area will have an increased staff presence. There will be an increased supervisory presence, and there will be an increased managerial presence because there'll be that much more staff in the outside area. So out with the grant of this application, the adverse effects are more likely, whereas positive effects are that much more likely if we have the outdoor area. And just one final point, the way we propose to use this outdoor area is that it will continue to effectively be used for our live events and our afternoon events. But because we operate a hotel, we all bring our events to a close by no later than 10 p.m. in any event, because we are just as concerned as to ensure that there is peace and quiet for our guests as there are for our neighbours. And so the garden is going to be used very much in the same way as we have done with the improvement of the bar servery area. In terms of the front areas and the front car park areas, what you'll find there is that we propose to use them for community-led events. These are events that we've been encouraged to undertake, some in participation with the local authority. So, for example, but for the bane of COVID, we would have been able to have a Christmas market. We would have been able to have a farmers market. We have had a pizza van and a coffee van during the COVID lockdown, all with full permission and cooperation from your local authority. Essentially, it's retail-led, but the purpose of the premises license, for example, would mean that we could serve mulled wine, we could serve a glass of wine with pizza, you could walk around the Christmas market with your mulled wine. We don't intend to operate in any other way, save for that as proposed. All our events are risk assessed. All our events have been risk assessed for the past 6 years now. They continue to be risk assessed as we have been living through COVID, and they will continue to do so. Sir, I commend this application to you in that it reflects no more than our existing operation. The grant of the outdoor servery in the garden will actually promote the licensing objectives and will provide a benefit to a cherished local business and to our neighbours. And to close with this, you'll have seen in the disclosure pack that for just as many as might want to complain about these premises, there are just as many that are impressed with our risk assessment, are impressed with our community spirit, and believe that we contribute to the wider community. I would urge you, sir, to act in the interest of the wider community and to grant this variation application. I trust that is succinct. I trust that you could all hear it. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer those questions. And I've got Mr. Carl Moore with me and Mr. Nick Windsor from the premises to assist you any further. Sir, I'm very grateful for your time.
Right. Thank you very much. Very clear and precise, and we could hear you perfectly. So you must be a technical whiz as well to get it all working properly. I'll now call Councillor Kenneth Alsop, local councillor in Meriden, for him to put forward the concerns that have been raised by some of the residents in close proximity to the Strawberry Bank. Are you there, Ken?
Sir, before I interrupt, sorry, can I just be... which objection the councillor is speaking to? Which of the objections is he speaking to?
John Edwards.
Alsop, could you like to answer that? But I mean, I'm sure you will be putting forward your views on behalf of the views of residents that you've been asked to put forward.
Thank you, Chair. Shall I go on now and start?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor, I'm unclear. Perhaps your legal advisor could assist me. Which of the objectors have instructed the councillor to speak on their behalf? Could you please just let me know the objection by number so I can cross-reference them in Appendix D?
I haven't got the number that he
Is
objected.
Santosh?
Yes. Councillor Alsop, do you know roughly how many of those objectors have come to you and asking you to object on their behalf?
At least 2.
And have they? And Santok, do you have the certificate where they've instructed and confirmed that the councillor is going to speak on their behalf? Because of course, if they don't have that, he can't do so. Does Democratic Services have that?
Naz sent an email to the Edwards recommending that if they to get in touch with the district councillor to speak on their behalf.
Ken, I'd just like to say that, Leo, that the normal practice is that if a councillor is approached, then he has a perfect right to address, and he's applied to do so to the department, that is David Acton, as secretary to the committee, and therefore he is perfectly entitled to address this meeting in the same way that you are.
Leo, can I suggest that we hear from the councillor on behalf of those 2? If you want who they are, you can ask him, but let's hear from councillor, at least from those 2 who have asked him.
Sure. John Edwards is objector 14, so I've got that in front of me. Which is the other person that the councillor is speaking for? Do we know?
I don't know the number, no.
No,
do you know the name, sir? And I can.
Lewis Edwards.
Sir, thank you. I'll look it up while you're speaking. But as your legal advisor knows.
I'd like to proceed now with Councillor Alsop to put forward the concerns of the residents, and especially those 2 that have been in touch with him.
Chair, can Leo please mute his microphone?
Alsop, please go ahead.
The first one, crime and disorder. There have been a number of previous incidents at the Strawberry Bank Hotel, including drunken, loud and unruly behaviour. In August this year, a major brawl erupted in the hotel car park. The brawl spilled out onto the footpath alongside the hotel and onto the adjacent main road. This took place in the late evening, early morning. It resulted in both the police and ambulance services attending the scene. This is a serious antisocial behaviour which is not acceptable and should not have to be tolerated by residents or anyone else in the vicinity of the premises. There are no conditions to prevent the noise and unruly behaviour. Number 2, public safety. I know I mentioned car parking in it, but that's all to do with public safety, Chair. The loss of car parking spaces to provide an outside parking area could result in guest vehicles being parked on the very busy main road or in front of residential properties and on double yellow lines. This could result in confrontation when guests are leaving the premises in the hotel evening or early hours of the morning. 3, prevention of public nuisance, noise levels. There have been numerous issues at this location regarding extreme noise level due to live music from outside events being played excessively. During the summer months, residents' windows and doors were kept closed to keep out noise from the premises. Complaints from residents were ignored, and throughout the summer, the high levels of music continued. This is antisocial behaviour, and noise could be a specific nuisance if the application was approved. I hope the panel will take into account the noise volume and disruption associated with any such events if a variation licence was granted. Number 4, harm to children. The prevention of under 18s from drinking alcohol would be much more difficult to monitor outside areas of the hotel. Public disturbances can alarm children, and their well-being is paramount. Also, a lack of sleep due to frequent disturbances could be an issue and should be taken into account. In conclusion, Chair, there are residents in Meriden and in surrounding areas whose life would not be affected by a variation licence. We've seen that by the people that supported the application, if it was granted. However, there are many residents, young, old, and those in retirement, who could lose the peace and tranquility they once had and have been accustomed to if a variation licence was granted. The hotel does not have a current licence which allows live outside events to take place. No permission has been given, but residents have reported that the hotel has advertised or organised and staggered outside events on several occasions. A large outdoor drinking area in the centre of Meriden Village is not a necessity and is totally unacceptable. I hope the panel will refuse this variation application. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Alsop. I think that I'd like to put any questions from members to either Leo or maybe, well, no, not to Councillor Alsop, but to Leo. And is there anyone else who wishes to speak first of all before we go to that set stage? Nobody else online at the moment wishes to speak. This is your only chance. No? Are you wishing to speak? No? Right. Councillors, have you any questions that you would like to ask Leo, please? Hello, are you all alive?
Chairman, Councillor Grinsell's indicating.
Is he
And
right,
Councillor Catherine Thomas.
Right, Councillor Grinsell first then, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened to the presentation, I've read it, I've even got a Google map up on my other computer as we speak. Naz, you can answer me one question, please. It reads, and I quote, licensed area of the premises to the outside boundary line in line with current government guidance encouraging the hospitality sector to utilise outside areas during the COVID-19 pandemic. We all wish that the COVID pandemic would go away. I'm sure everyone would agree with that. What would happen to any variation licence should we get through this pandemic? Would it be go back to square one, or would it continue? Because that's a very important point, and it's what the report is telling us, that it's for the COVID pandemic. I also note that the extension of the license there, this is all in 3.3 on page 6. The extension of the licensed area outside is to allow for outdoor dining and any other functions. I've listened to Leo, and in fact, what he's said in terms of community of events would be potentially a benefit to residents of Meriden and the surrounding area. Therefore, can or would the applicant be happy with that reading and any other community-led events? I'll leave it for that for the moment, Chair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Naz, have you got anything to say to Councillor Grinsell?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Grinsell, the wording that's in the report is actually from the applicant's application. The variation would still stand unless the members gave a time-limited licence.
That one, Naz. Rather hoping Leo would answer my other question.
So yes, I can confirm the application for variation is not time limited. We are specifically asking for the servery to be able to go into the garden and to use the outside areas. And the second question, in terms of the community-led events, the inspiration for the application was in part to do with the use of the car park for things like the coffee van, which we had a street trading license for, or the sort of takeaway pizza, or indeed for things like Christmas markets and farmers markets and so on. So we very much hope to work with the local authority and indeed the wider local community to achieve that, because they don't come from our initiative. They come from typically the council and its agencies.
But you've not answered my question, Leo. Would you be happy if there was something that said community-led events?
I'm just trying to think that through, in the sense that, well, for practical purposes, yes, I don't have an issue with that. And in terms of giving that legal effect, I don't know if that's by way of a condition or whether it can be an informative, but I certainly have no issue with you making a record of that as part of your decision notice or an informative on the premises license, because as Naz has said, it comes from our own application. So I'm definitely not unhappy with it. I'm just thinking about how to give it legal effect, which is why I hesitate. At the moment, either decision notice or an informative would seem to me to be a lawful way forward. I'm happy to be inspired by Mr. Gill if he thinks there's another way of doing that.
Thank you for that, Leo. I'm not overly happy with informatives because informatives tend to get ignored. But thank you for your response.
Zantok, you're on mute.
Sorry, thanks, Leo. Leo, just to confirm what you just said there. So there's a potential condition there, as regards wording on it, to allow for outdoor dining for community-led events or stroke functions to take place in a car park and rear garden.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just trying to think of a condition that would make it that would be lawful. I don't want to agree a condition that then someone like me pitches up and says, "Oh, I don't know if that's clear." But it seems to me that if we say that the outdoor area is to be used for licensable activities, which I think is what we've got to say, because outdoor dining is not a licensable activity, so we can't make a condition to that. So if we say that the outside area is to be used for licensable activities, which covers everything that we might do, and other community-led events, I think would be kind of lawful and a useful way of delineating that.
But it's and then, isn't it, really? Because you've already got the outdoor area to be used for licensing activities. It shouldn't be for community-led events rather than and.
Well, the first thing is, if you're granting what we're looking at is we're looking for permission to have licensable activities. What we're straying into is land use principles, and so I think what we're effectively talking about is a land use condition which is straying into the planning field.
Not necessarily, because that's purely a licensing activity for certain events, not any event. So that's not land use, it's more licensing, basically. If you were to say used for licensing activities for community-led events, that would cover what you propose, wouldn't it?
Well, except not all my events are community-led events. What I'm saying is that the garden area is predominantly being used for an extension of licensable activities, which covers all events. And in terms of the car park area, what we're looking for there is predominantly for community-led events. But say, for example, there was a private market operator, say a Christmas market operator, they would be a private operator to which the community would benefit. But the fact that a private operator was using our land, we would have a private agreement that allow us to operate. So that's the difficulty I'm trying to address. I agree that you and our application have a common aim in trying to find the right wording. I'm just struggling to find the right wording while we're doing this off the cuff.
Is there any chance that you can email me some suggested wording as we progress the next few minutes?
Yeah. Do you want to email me your suggestion, and I'll email you back, and we'll email backwards and forwards to find something, and then it's up to the councillors whether they want to accept it or not.
Of course.
Thank you.
Councillor Catherine Thomas, please.
Okay, sorry, got a couple of questions. First one, I know you said that the outdoor space is going to be used for live events. What exactly constitutes a live event? Does that include live music? Second question is, when you are using the outdoor car parking space, what is the maximum percentage of the outdoor car parking space that you envisage being used at any given time? And where do you expect the displaced people who would have used those car parking spaces to park during that time period? And thirdly, have you received any further complaints about noise since the incident on the 7th of September?
So thank you for that. So live music can be, under the Live Music Act, it can be either amplified or unamplified, and we're entitled by law to do that as long as we operate within particular parameters. So we already have that permission, and we will continue to take advantage of that. We're also able to take advantage of that under the Deregulation Act as well. So those two things are made clear, and they're set out in the Section 182 guidance, which deals with in terms of parking and parking spaces, as set out in the report. It's not a relevant consideration. However, practically speaking, the parking is provided for our guests and residents. So when we risk assess any event in the car park, we'll make sure that our guests and residents can be accommodated. There's no point us organising a Christmas market if the effect of it is going to be that it won't allow us to have our guests or operate our hotel. We're not going to operate our business in such a way that we're going to bite our nose to spite our own face. So there will always be the provision of parking for our guests and our residents. Equally, when thinking about, say, a farmer's market or a Christmas market on the car parking space, we need to accommodate our guests and residents. We need to accommodate any facilities that need to support that, for example, clean up and stewards or whatever it might be to operate a useful farmer's market. So in practical sense, the amount of physical space that's going to be used to be accessed will be limited by the type of operation. So what we're not going to have, and I suspect is the worry, is that we're not going to empty out the car park and fill and cram every single corner with market stalls and so on. It's going to be risk assessed, and any risk assessment is going to be submitted to the police and the local council in order that we work with them to achieve a goal that they can all buy into. Otherwise, they just won't happen. Does that help?
On the parking, I'm afraid you talked far too much legal jargon in the first question for me to actually understand what the answer was. Is that will the bands be playing outside or not?
So if I could explain the reason behind that, yes. We already have legal authority to have those events. So whether you grant the variation or not, the variation that you are looking at is not to do with the bands, and it's not to do with outside events. We have permission for that. What I'm asking for is permission to have an outdoor servery to serve alcohol in the outside area. So you're looking at the impact of alcohol in the outside area. So when I have those live events, they're either going to have alcohol served from the interior of the premises or from a station outside. If there is a station outside of those premises, then it means that there's going to be extra staff and extra supervision, which is why I say it's a benefit. The reason I also have to answer yes to those events is we're not this evening reviewing what has happened in the past, or we're not reviewing whether or not I can have outdoor events or live events, because as a matter of law, I'm entitled to those outdoor events. The only way that there can be a condition that limits those outdoor events is if there is a specific review arising from outdoor events where a committee of yours then makes a decision to take away from us the legal rights that we have as a result of the Live Music Act and the Deregulation Act. So I'm afraid there is a lot of legal jargon there, but what it means is that for tonight's purposes, you have to accept that we can already do live music, and whatever the outcome of tonight, we can continue to do live music. What I can say is that our live music is all risk assessed. It generally stops in the late afternoon or early evening, and it never goes on beyond 10 p.m. All our external events in the garden come to an end at 10 p.m. in any event. And if there is some concern, I'm quite happy to offer up as a condition that licensable activities to a garden area at 10 p.m., which is the, I think, the main way. Sure.
Forgive me for being a little confused. I'm looking at the details of your license in Appendix B, and it says live music indoors, but there's nothing down there about live music outdoors, which is why I asked the question.
Yeah, so live music outdoors is allowed by virtue of the Live Music Act and the Deregulation Act. It means that where certain circumstances are met, any premises which has a license can have outdoor regulated entertainment. And the section of that in the Section 182 guidance is paragraph 16. And it's paragraph 16 that confirms everything that I've been saying, which is, as a result of the deregulation in the Live Music Act, no license is required for the following activities. And that includes our live events. So we can have any live music or amplified music between 8 a.m. and 11 o'clock on any day, as long as our audience does not exceed 500 people. So we can do that. That's why I don't need it to be on the premises license. The only way that that entitlement can be removed is if there is a very specific review that reviews the provision of deregulated, regulated entertainment. And if I haven't made myself unfriendly enough for my legal speak, the phrase deregulated, regulated entertainment should be enough to completely send you over the edge. There has to be a very specific review arising from that, where a committee of the council can say, you can no longer have the benefit of this statutory permission and you are taking it away. That is not happening tonight, and there has been no such application put in place yet. And that's why we can have our outdoor events.
Okay. And could I just get an answer to the third question about have you received any further noise complaints since the 7th of September?
No, we've had the issues in August. We think that they arise from a number of ways. One, having gone from the quiet of COVID back to normal operations, we think that there might have been increased sensitivities. Two, we think that it might be down to more about the anxieties of people remingling again as a concern, because in terms of our risk assessment and what we've done over the summer, it's no different to what we've already done in the previous 6 years. So we're a little bit surprised by that. We are, however, committed to continue to work with environmental health. We continue to work with our own risk assessment to ensure that we don't have any noise. The biggest event with live radio show included a band which had drums. We have never had external drums played before, and so we recognise that might have been an issue. Moving forward, we've have our own house rule, which is we're not going to have drums coming back in, so there'll be no percussive element. So we think that will ensure that we don't get any further complaints.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine and Leo. Just a comment from myself, really. I think people, me included, have been somewhat misinformed by the situation why we're here tonight. I mean, the objections that have come in have all been due to the potential noise disturbance from Strawberry Fields, which is right at the back garden edge of your establishment, and across the road, and one or two other areas close by. And I think they all felt that this was going to be more than just the request for a licensed bar in the garden, and it was more to do with the potential outdoor music activities that have been occurring. I cannot see any reason why you can't use your outside facilities, because a lot of public houses have an outdoor garden for children to play, etc., and just conversation. And it was the music, I think, that's been the cause of concern. And potential Christmas market maybe, or a pig roast, or that type of thing, which again has been raised by the objectors. The ones who have been writing in, and we had a load at the weekend, in favour are people who don't live very close to the establishment, and one lives as far away as Cheltenham, and a couple from Solihull and Coventry. So I'm thinking of the closeness of the residents to your establishment. Now, I think I'm misunderstood why we're here this evening. I think a lot of other people feel somewhat. They felt it was also to do with your outside musical activities. And it's basically, from what I understand, the only thing that possibly could take place is you either have a licensed bar in the garden or you don't.
Sir, that is exactly it. And you've been warned about that by your licensing officer at 3.6, which says you are to disregard comments relating to parking, highways and so on. And of course, that's the nature of civil society. I don't criticise them. They are, of course, not represented by lawyers. There is a very clear legal regime that operates here. And the legal regime that we're operating under is we are asking for a variation in this very specific way, which is for the outdoor servery area. That is what you and your colleagues are mandated to look at, not the wider issues. Now, you may have sympathy with the wider issues, but the wider issues are not for consideration. And as Mr. Gill will tell you, if you make a decision based on those wider issues, you won't be making a lawful decision, because to make the decision on the music noise, you need to make a decision on the basis of a review application that has been specifically put in to deal with that. So apologies if anyone's been confused by that.
Right. Is there anyone else on the member side wish to?
Yes, please, Chair.
Councillor Grinsell.
Thank you. I think Leo said it, but irrespective of whether he said it or not.
Excuse me interrupting. Could we just adjourn for a couple of minutes? I've got a call from my GP. Would you allow this, please?
Be happy.
I won't be a moment.
Could everybody put themselves on mute, please? Sent.
Thank you very much indeed for that adjournment. Councillor Grinsell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm getting a lot of conflicting evidence here. Leo obviously is quoting the law, and that's his job so to do. But I note on page 33, at the bottom of page 33 of that text, that following a visit from West Midlands Police, Mr. Windsor, who I understand is the manager of the premises, in respect to complaints following the live band, that Mr. Windsor stated, and I quote, "They will no longer be having any live bands." He also advised that although they have a late notice, any music is played, it ceases at 8 p.m. Now, this conflicts with Leo's account, where he's talking about 10 p.m. and live music was permitted, will continue. This is the same organisation, but they're conflicting reports. I need some clarity, please.
Sir, absolutely. That record of the well, in fact, the entire record of Appendix G, I can only give limited weight to, because I don't know what the source is, I don't know the evidence upon which it is based, and I don't know who it's.
It's a quotation from West Midlands Police, sir.
So allegedly, but as you know from paragraph 9.12, I'm entitled to scrutinise any purported evidence by the police, and I make my career on the basis of taking police statements, questioning them, and then proving that they're not in fact accurate. Now, the point about the 8 p.m. is that the 8 p.m. arises because during COVID, we were operating a series of events, and these series of events were to do with live broadcasts. They were in conjunction with a local radio station, and they were the outdoor broadcasts. They generally lasted from 12 to 6, with the live show being between 1 and 3. On one occasion, which is the occasion that we had most complaints about, it exceptionally continued until 8 p.m. So I think that's where the police officer gets the 8 p.m. from. But as a matter of operational practice, the way the premises operates is that because we care about our local residents and indeed by the people that stay in the hotel, we ensure that any event that is held outside concludes by 10 p.m. So operationally, that is the final arbiter of where we operate. When we risk assess and we look at our outdoor events, whether we're going to have a DJ broadcast or we're going to have a live performance, they tend to start in the afternoon and conclude in the early evening or late evening, and they are always subject to risk assessment. And so the period that they will end can be anywhere between 6 and 10, subject to our risk assessment. So there's no contradiction at all in the evidence. What we do is we operate within our legal permission, but indeed do so less than what we are legally entitled to do, which is to operate until 11 o'clock at night. Parliament has said to us in 2 acts of Parliament that when it comes to live music or live entertainment in a licensed area, whether it is amplified or not, they think it's a really good idea and it should be encouraged that these venues can have these live events for up to 500 people. So that's the threshold of what is permissible. We, of course, operate on a much lower and much reduced level.
Thank you for an answer that could have been halved in actual fact. So you're disagreeing with your manager slightly, albeit giving us the verbatims of the facts. But as a councillor here in Solihull, as I'm sure all members, we have to review this based on 4 objectives. Now, our major concern has to be for the local residents in and around the applicant's premises. And that's why we've got those 4 things. I'm disappointed at your view of our police officers here in the West Midlands. Sergeant Prescott is well known to this committee, and he's always been very accurate, very truthful, and we've had no reason to dispute what he has put forward. So I'm going to leave it there for the moment, Chair. Thank you, and I hope others may have some questions. No, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Chair, I need to intervene for a number of reasons. Firstly, the West Midlands Police have made no representations. I don't know where Appendix G comes from. As you well know, I need to be told this so that I can respond to it. Secondly, your colleague, Councillor Grinsell, who makes some excellent points, nonetheless erred in the following way. He says, we have to review this. This is not a review, and this is a mistake that you are all making. As you said yourself, sir.
It's just wording.
Okay, well, I'm grateful for that because I want to make sure that we are understanding what we're here. There is a far wider picture, but we are constrained by the law to address it on a very narrow basis. And that may well make us uncomfortable, but that's what the law is doing. It is effectively putting us all in an uncomfortable straitjacket this evening. So apologies for that.
Right. We'll move on now. Is there any other questions from members? Councillor Thomas, please. Councillor Paul Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the outdoor servery. What's actually been planned to serve from there? And if it's drinks in glasses, are they real glasses or are they a substitute? And you said about this will be more staff. I presume it'll be probably 2 staff, will it? Depending on how busy you are. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Absolutely, sir. Those are very good questions. And I'm hoping that Carl and Nick are responding to me in the WhatsApp group so that I can answer you with them. Okay, I see. So in terms of our events, when an event takes place outdoor, depending on the likely capacity, depending on how many people are going to be there, the nature of the event. So if it's a reception for a birthday, if it's a DJ live event, they will be risk assessed. So depending on how many people are out there, there will be extra staff, there will be extra supervisors, there will be managers. It may well be that there'll be SIA, depending on the number of people that might or might not be involved, all of whom are responsible for doing that. I think one of the reasons that we don't have representations from the police is that our risk assessments have not found any fault with them. But I can confirm that having an outside venue means that there is always someone at the servery with eyes and ears on the ground in the relevant part, ensuring that the licensing objectives and our own procedures are being met. I don't know if we use polycarbonates or not, and I'm just waiting for Nick to respond to that. But it's yeah, we currently do use we use glass, and I'm also told that a manager is always present outside, so that gives you the sort of minimum basis subject to our risk assessment. Did that answer all your questions, or because I think as Councillor Grinsell correctly notes down, other than my mother, there are very few people that love the sound of my own voice than me, so I don't want to spend too much time talking and miss the answer.
I'm happy with the answers, but you can understand the question about the real glass. What I'm concerned of if breakages that's reported.
So I do, and we've actually looked over our logs, and in the 6 years that we've been operating, no single neighbour has approached us and said we have a problem with bottles and glasses. So we are concerned about that, but this is why I opened with the concern about anxieties over evidence. The police haven't approached us, environmental health haven't approached us, none of our neighbours have approached us previous to this. And as far as we're concerned, our bottles and glasses don't go missing because we collect them and supervise our outdoor areas accordingly.
Could I just ask, I've gone and lost it. How many outdoor activities that have you had during the last summer, which have had music, DJs, etc.? How many occasions will you have had that type of outdoor activity?
So this summer we have had 4 radio broadcasts. So that was with the local radio station. It started at 12 noon and all but one of them lasted until 6. The live broadcast portion was between 1 and 3. And only on one occasion did the event go on until 8 p.m. There was a live band. That was the event where we had the drum. That was a live music band. The first time we've had a percussion element. That was on a bank holiday weekend, and that was between 1 and 3, and it was a 3-piece live band. We completely accept that the impact of the bass was such that as a matter of our own internal policies, we're not going to have percussion instruments anymore. So that's our 4th event. Our 5th event that was cancelled, we applied for a temporary event notice to host a bonfire party, and that obviously didn't go ahead because COVID overtook us. But your local authority, that is the Police and Environmental Health, reviewed that application and had no objections to that. And I think the capacity of that was a COVID safe capacity of 250. So that's the outline of our events. If there's anything I missed, Carl and Nick will message me in WhatsApp.
But when you mentioned 12 till 6 for the 4 radio broadcasts, there doesn't appear to be any what I would call late night music outside. Am I wrong? Because when it says, like Councillor Grinsell mentioned, he was advised that although they have a late notice, any music that is played will cease at 8 p.m. Now you're saying 10 p.m., but when are the occasions during last summer were there, shall we say, after 8 o'clock?
This past COVID summer, I don't think there were any. We use the garden every day, and the reason we have the 10 p.m. cutoff is because we have guests that stay in our premises, and because we have, just as our neighbours want to sleep, our guests want to sleep. We're not going to ruin our business for the sake of an outside bar. So the balance for us comes that we effectively bring activities to a close by 10 p.m. We operate our events that happen outside tend to be afternoon events or early to late evening, and that's what we do. But sir, you're absolutely right. We have not, in this past COVID summer, operated beyond 8 o'clock on any single occasion. It just tends to.
How long would you want your licensed bar to be running from if it was outside? If you had a licensed bar outside, would that run till 10 o'clock at night?
Yes.
Okay, 10 o'clock. Right. Zantok, have you been able to email Leo and vice versa on some suggestions that you were putting forward?
Yes, just wait for some kind of response by email, hopefully by Leo when he gets a chance.
I can answer you now. I've been jotting down. So while you were taking your call, I was able to call Santosh. I think I've found the way through, which is to have a condition that says alcohol activities in the garden and car park area to cease at 10 p.m. The last sale of alcohol to be no later than 9:40 p.m. If you agree with the general thrust of this, Santosh, I'll send you an email. Licensable activities in the car park area are to be ancillary to community events. I think that might be the way forward. For example, roast hogs, farmers markets, Christmas markets, etc. So I think the concept of ancillary is something that works in licensing, and it means that we're not using land use principles. Also, a condition that any activity in the car parking area shall have no glassware, only polycarbonates. I think that's a good suggestion that we're happy to incorporate. So those are the three areas that I've been making a note of. If there is anything that I've missed, let me know. I will email you.
Have you got that, Zantok?
No, but I'm sure Leo will email those draft wording to me.
Well, yes. Well, you heard
Yes.
what he had to say.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Coming probably closer to
Chairman, can I ask Leo just one thing to address those concerns from the nearby residents? Is there something that you can offer as regards a mobile number of a manager, so when they are complaints of noise, they have this point of contact?
I think Nick's. I can see from the screen that Nick is. Absolutely. We can arrange for a contact detail.
Right. Are there any other questions to Leo or to Zantok or to Nazbathan from members, please? Catherine?
Simple one. Will the outdoor servery bar area be playing like piped and amplified music?
So the outdoor area, the events will be regulated. The servery area currently, as well as our outdoor area, excuse me, I'm recovering from a chest infection, not COVID, has background music.
So in actual fact, if you have no live bands or anything with the local radio station, you are going to have music playing of some sort in the garden, could be 7 days a week. Is that correct?
Sir, we already do. We already use the garden every single day of the week and have done so for the past 10 years. We serve alcohol there, we serve food there, and there is background music that is played there that stops at 10 p.m. That's how we already operate. And it's against that backdrop that we're somewhat surprised by these representations, because the Parish Council, their representatives have not been in touch with us. Some of the complaints are, this is the first we've heard of them. A number of them, to be perfectly frank, are quite inappropriate given some of the allegations that they make, and I'm not going to give them any credence by repeating them here. Our door has always been open. We always work with our local community. The fact is, over the summer, for the first time in 6 years, we had a three-piece band, one of which included drums. Someone complained to us. We've made a decision not to repeat that again. We work with our community, as all the letters of representations and support that we've had show, some of them from afar, but many of them from nearby residents. And we make our living by being part of the local community. So we already operate this outdoor area 95% of the way in which we've been discussing today without issue. All we're doing is adding an outdoor servery, which will, as I say, cause an improvement in the situation above and beyond what already exists.
So Leo, maybe it'd be helpful if you can let members know where this outdoor server will be parked or stalled.
Can you confirm that for me, Nick, please, in the email, in the text chat? In part, I know it moves around, so it's mobile, so that it can, so for example, if they were going to be a small reception, it will move according to, and that's why we've got the big red line. If it's a small wedding reception for guests that are staying in the hotel, it will be in one location. If we've got the sort of DJs and events that we, say, for example, had over the summer, the bar will be at the back, closer to the building, and it will reflect the layout of the particular event itself. It's typically on the hotel side, and generally Nick tells me that we try and keep it away from the neighbours and at the rear of our premises. Because it's at the rear of our premises, it also means that it's closer to our guests, which is why we have a vested interest. Even if you don't believe any of my community spirit submissions, believe our commercial submissions, which is I've got a vested interest to keep it down because I don't want to scare my my guests away. So that's where the balance lies.
Thank you.
Will there, finally, I think, will there be, or do you provide a normal roast dinner or steak in the garden to people, or would it, do you provide a proper meal in the outside garden area?
I'm just waiting on the answer. I think, from what I understand, the way we're run, the answer is yes. But Nick, if you could confirm to me that we have people eat every day in the garden, and there's a full, substantial meal available to them at all times.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Drawing this to a close, I think, unless there are any more questions or points that you would like to raise. Zantok, anything further until we go into private?
No, just to say, Leo, I don't think we're going to be giving petition tonight. They'll be written down and emailed probably tomorrow.
That's fine. I expected that.
Now, is there anything you wish to add?
No, Chairman, I'm fine, thank you.
Paul Thomas? No? Catherine?
So, well, Leo, are you emailing those draft wording for the conditions?
Yes, as soon as I log off, I will email you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And if you need any clarification, you've obviously got my email and my mobile, and I'm very happy to answer you at any time.
Thank you.
Right. And Bob Grinsell, anything else to comment before we shut down and make
Thank you.
No? Okay. Right. Thank you very much for your attendance to all of you. David Acton, our clerk to the committee, will delete you. He said something else. We'll delete you from the or review. Let's put it review. And as David Acton will send you an email tomorrow, Leo, to give you the good, bad, or indifferent news.
Sir, thank you very much.
Right, David, can you now as host dispatch people?
I will certainly, and I'll close the live stream as well.
Thank you.